Hey everyone, it's Beverly Hallberg. Welcome to a special pop-up episode of She Thinks, your favorite podcast from the Independent Women's Forum, where we talk with women and sometimes men about the policy issues that impact you and the people you care about most. Enjoy.
Hi, this is Claudia, Rosett. I'm a Foreign Policy Fellow with the Independent Women's Forum, and I have the great pleasure today of hosting for a discussion about Taiwan, Free China, Elisha Maldonado, who is a terrific writer and a Senior Policy Fellow with the Independent Women's Forum and a member of the New York Post editorial board. Elisha, welcome.
Hi, Claudia. Thank you for having me.
Great to have you. Yeah, a pleasure. Okay, we're here. You wrote an article in November with the alarming headline, Taiwan fears it will become the next Hong Kong. And there's been, as people have seen in the news, a lot of terrible things have been going on in Hong Kong this year, where China has basically transformed it from a free society into another piece of China with arrests, repression, and so on. But can you tell us a little more, just for starters, about what you mean that Taiwan fears it will become the next Hong Kong? What does that entail?
Well, Hong Kong, as we all know, is, democratic, had their own law and order. And Taiwan was much the same. They're independent. They still go under the name Taiwan Republic of China, but they have free elections. They're a free country. They're independently run, and they see, so as they are so close to China as well, what they've done in Hong Kong, and because China fears freedom and democracy, that they're coming for them next. And I think that they have every right to have that fear. And I think it's a very real one. It's a very genuine that now that China's taken Hong Kong, there's Taiwan. Let's go get them next. And you can see them doing these military exercises.
Maybe we should throw in just a little bit of background because what exactly is Taiwan? Back in 1949, when the communists took over China, the nationalist government, that was our ally in World War II, which helped us win World War II, was defeated and fled to Taiwan and set up the Republic of China on Taiwan. And it was a dictatorship for many decades, but then they went democratic. And they're now a Chinese democracy, sort of a shining example of how democracy can work with Chinese culture. Just as Hong Kong wanted desperately, democracy is a free culture, free society. And that's what we're talking about today. And
exactly.
China has claimed that Taiwan as a rogue province. They want to take it back. And
that's right.
The threats have grown and grown. So you actually can, just to give people a sort of a feel for the place, you went there not so long ago. Can you tell us a little bit about, you went there on a Taiwan government-sponsored trip, but there's a reason why you chose that path and why they are bringing journalists over and trying desperately, really, to get attention. Can you give us a little bit of background on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I got to go last December, actually, and it was just a really, really wonderful and enriching experience. The Taiwanese they love America, they love democracy, and they want to be our friend. They're really trying to be hard to be a best friend, and so they're trying to bring over, journalists and other writers and thinkers to see how their country works, to see that it is a flourishing democracy, and hopefully give them some support. And so it was easy for me to say yes to, because that's not I already believe that. I'm already on their side, to be honest, because I think that we should be friends to people who love democracy, especially in that region, especially with China so close, trying to go for world domination, because let's be honest, that's what they're going for. And so, but it's a really vibrant culture, very, very free and democratic one, lovely people who are open and and really love America. And like they kept saying, everyone I talked to, we love America, we love Trump, But I think that they just appreciate that President Trump has been hard on China, and that was kind of been a comfort. But it was a really great experience to go and get to talk to a bunch of people who share the values that Americans share.
Could we maybe let's chat a little bit about what happened at the very beginning of this year with the beginning of the coronavirus pandemic, when we saw the difference, I think, in very stark contrast between China and Taiwan. China covered up the outbreak until it was really starting to spread. Taiwan actually alerted the World Health Organization by asking about it. Again, can you tell us a little bit about that? What is sort of the basic difference between Communist China and Free China, which is what we're talking about when we contrast the People's Republic of China with Taiwan?
Well, I mean, I think that the Taiwanese they know by proxy just how China works, and so they were quicker than probably the rest of us or the rest of the world to what they were doing or covering up coronavirus, and the head of the World Health Organization, Tedros, long name, he's kind of a handmaiden he is, he was put into that power position by China. So you can see how they would cover that up, how the World Health Organization helped cover that up. But, Taiwan got in front of it because they know how China works. And they just said, all right, we can't trust anything that they're saying. So we're going to deal with this on our own. And if you look at their response to coronavirus, haven't shut down. Economy is vibrant. I think that they have like a record low number of deaths. Last time I looked, it was like 7 or something like that. It may have gone up, but ever so slightly.
Gone up very slightly, but basically they are one of the lowest numbers in the world. They are still well below 1,000 cases and a very small number of deaths. They immediately put on all sorts of measures. They did one other thing in that critical interval in January when China was just letting it spread and lying about it, and the World Health Organization was lying about it. Taiwan held a presidential election in the middle of that
That's
time.
Right. That's right.
I'm just trying to think, can you give us a little more sense of, you've been there. What does it feel like? You get out at the airport. What kind of a place do you see? Is this the developed world? Is this a different world? Is it like us? What do you remember from being there?
Well, I mean, the first thing I thought of was the colors, of course, in the trees, and so just how beautiful it was. Like the demographics, is that the word I'm looking for? Just the way it looked, but it feels different in that any new city you go to feels different. But I just remember just being welcomed with open arms, and they were just so kind. It was my overarching thought was, wow, these people are going out of their way to make sure these American tourists are taken care of, who get to see their country, as many parts of it as they can, and who answer questions openly. And we got to go to different for election headquarters for different, some of the different parties, and they were all just so willing and desperate, actually, to just show you how well their elections are running, or even, despite the Chinese disinformation attempts, but, in Taipei, how smoothly that they can run. So that stands out.
And so we have there the difference between one-party rule in communist China and the various parties that you had a chance to speak freely with on Taiwan. Now, one of the important issues here is, what place does Taiwan occupy in the world? Because we have here a free China. I mean, this is what we need China to be, what we hoped for decades that China, the People's Republic of China, would become. And here on Taiwan, that's actually what's emerged, the democratic China. But there are 193 countries in the UN. Of these, how many countries still recognize Taiwan?
So Taiwan has only 15 allies. in total. That's including the Vatican, which is the only one in Europe. And the rest are a bunch of little tiny island Latin American, Caribbean countries, some small, East Asia Pacific countries, all places that most Americans would not even know is on the map or the name of. So that tells you a lot. And
so among the world's great democracies, basically not one recognizes Taiwan. This is due in part to China's constant campaign to hive off, to take away countries that deal officially with Taiwan that recognize it as part of the effort to downgrade it. Can you give us a few of the countries that do recognize Taiwan?
Yeah, so I would say also, this is what Beijing does. When I talked to Foreign Minister Wu, and he said that his fear is that Taiwan is left out there dangling alone. And when you look at some of the allies that they have, not to diminish the allies that they do have, but the Marshall Islands, Eswatini, Belize, Haiti, Nicaragua, there's St. Kitts, Nevis, so these smaller islands, Nicaragua is not the smallest, but Beijing their goal is to keep stripping away all of some of their bigger allies. And since President Tsai has first took office in 2016, so over the past 4 years, China has poached 7 of their former allies. Some are, Dominican Republic, Panama, El Salvador, San Tome and Principe, some other ones too. So they're that's how
China
they work.
Poaching away the countries that legitimize Taiwan. And just Taiwan is an interesting character. I'd love to hear your impression of her. That she always strikes me as this enormously collected, thoughtful woman navigating one of the most difficult jobs in world politics. Is that kind of right?
Oh yeah, I totally agree with that. And she's a tiny little lady, but she's fierce to me as well. Collected, calm, cool, collected, but fierce. She's a superwoman running free China, and not backing down to Beijing. She's not afraid to stand their ground. And she had in the run up to this election, there was the Chinese who are great gaslighters and excellent disinformation, were trying to flood all of this weird information out there about her. When I was in Taiwan, if I remember the story correctly, they were trying to say that she had that she was pregnant and all sorts of weird things that went against some kind of cultural thing, which I guess is a terrible story because I'm not doing a very good job of telling it. But to withstand all of those kind of disinformation attacks and not be cowed.
So disinformation, the attempt to disenfranchise Taiwan as a member of the international, I don't like the phrase international community, but that's what China's trying to evict Taiwan from.
What I think
is
interesting?
What other threat? Yeah.
Sorry. I was going to add this because I think it's interesting, and I think it's a testament to how quickly Beijing works. So Foreign Minister Wu, when I talked to him in August, had told me that just recently, so within that month of August, Taipei had established a representative office in Somaliland, which is close to Somalia. And almost immediately, China's ambassador to Somalia had offered the Somaliland president a development package on the condition that they cease talks with Taiwan at all, in no time at all. And this is Somaliland. What are they actually going to really do for Taiwan if push came to shove? But it's still a testament, I think, to how terrified China is by freedom and democracy. Sorry, I just thought that was interesting because he told me that, and
That's important. Actually, that's a great illustration of this horrendous bullying behavior. This is part of a world scene in which, as you mentioned, China aspires to become the dominant world power. And part of that formula is they want to destroy these first steps are destroy the free society in Hong Kong, as you wrote, somehow destroy the free society in Taiwan. You've mentioned disinformation. You've mentioned how they try and take away countries that recognize them, poach them. What else? What other threats does Taiwan face from China? How dire is this?
Well, we should definitely examine the real ramp up of military aggression in the Straits, in the East China Sea, in the South China Sea. Near daily, as I write in September, it was near daily military exercises and aggression flying over Taiwanese airspace. It's a show to say, look what we can do, get ready, and those exercises have been near daily. When one of our White House officials went to visit, they ramped up. There was like a whole weekend full of aggression, and Chinese, they're getting into the waters too now, just to show them we can come if we want to. And their military, unfortunately, is much larger than Taiwan. So there's a real fear that they could be outgunned, and they are outgunned actually. But Taiwan is working on bolstering its defenses and ramping up its military, which is good on them. They need to, but also why they need more allies like the United States, for instance. To come out and
the Trump administration has been selling them weapons as we head into the interesting mysteries of 2021. The U.S. administration has been selling them weapons at a picked up pace that they may need to defend themselves. And may we just paint a picture of the geography there? It's a relatively narrow strait that separates the island of Taiwan from the mainland of China. And along the coast, China has positioned missiles for years. But now you're seeing this huge military modernization in China. And they've built a blue water navy, which has been taking over, sort of creating artificial islands in the South China Sea to threaten freedom of navigation. And Taiwan sits within striking distance of all that. Do you have any sense of how imminent a threat that might be? How dangerous is the situation?
I think that it's pretty dire. As the foreign minister said, which is true, whenever China faces internal discord, like creating havoc with creating a pandemic by hiding it, for instance, they focus outward. So they take the heat off themselves. At least they think that they're taking the heat off themselves. They try to muck other things up around the world. So I think that is pretty dangerous. I think that we need to be on Taiwan's side much faster than we're moving. In my opinion,
there are a number of things. Among the places that make it difficult for Taiwan is the United Nations, which excludes them, which has not allowed them, which let them take part as an observer for a while at the World Health Organization, but then kicked them out again in 2017. And in most cases, doesn't even allow them in the building. This is the kind of challenge they've got on every front. Can you give us some idea of what it is that the United States can do, needs to do, must do, and why that matters? Why is it so important?
I think that first and foremost is to come out openly and staunchly on the side of Taiwan. And they haven't done that historically. As I note in my piece, they've operated on this kind of strategic ambiguity kind of principle whereby they can keep peace with China, at least on the surface, but by not antagonizing them, by supporting Taiwan. And it doesn't let China know that if push comes to shove, that the United States would come in for Taiwan. But I think that we're past that, and we need to. And I honestly believe that if the United States just came out and said, we are going to stand with Taiwan, and if there's any kind of military action or aggression toward Taiwan, they will have an ally and a defender as well. And I think if we did that, I firmly believe that the UK would join, Australia would join, Japan would join. Now we're talking about bigger allies, Japan is just as...
Now we're talking about an alliance that could really matter in Asia.
Exactly.
Which is one of the things that we don't quite have. And of course, Taiwan occupies this sort of strange status where it's not treated as a country, even though it has its own government, its own borders, all the features of a country. China claims it as a province, and Taiwan does, participates in things under these various odd labels: Taipei, China, the trade and economic office and so on.
Right.
If the U.S. were to actually go, and America recognized Taiwan, the Republic of China, as China until Nixon's rapprochement with Communist China in 1972. And then Jimmy Carter normalized relations with China in 1979, and Taiwan went into this strange status. If America were to recognize Taiwan as a country, no doubt China would have a fit. But
yes.
Would that be a good thing? Tell us a little bit about that.
I mean, I think so. Look at where we are. China's increasingly more aggressive, not just in Taiwan, but around the world. Look at what the communists have done this year, and they're unapologetic about it. If you look at what they're doing to the Uyghurs, to like the surveilling of their own citizens in their country, like if they don't care about those things, then they definitely don't care about anyone else in the world. And I think that we don't really have much to lose, I guess I would say, because one way or another, I feel like there's going to be a clash with China one way or another. We could get ahead of that, I think. I think we should.
Maybe that's.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. I'm going to say maybe that's a good note to wrap this up. But I think it's important just to underline as clearly as we possibly can the stakes here. Years ago, Elisha, I had an editor who called me up in the middle of the night. I was working in Hong Kong and said to me, "I want you to take this down." And he said, "Red China, red China, red China, red China, free China, free China, free China, free China." Go in and write about that. What's the basic contrast here, and how does this matter to the future of the 21st century, the future of the world? I mean, how big are these stakes?
They're massive. If we want a world in which China gets bigger and bigger and gets to squelch any kind of freedom at all or dissent, if the world is okay with that being taken over with, then by all means let them have their way, and they will get it. So I think that it's really important that we defend places like China, who share the same values, because that'll catch on, I think, as I said. And I mean, we have to fight against that for freedom to go on, I guess. That's a weird way of saying that. But we have to fight against the communists who would take down anyone who stands in their way. And Taiwan they're doing their best.
Precisely. It does seem to be the way, if you look for a way forward, what do we do about a China that is ruled by a really basically hostile government with ambitions to rule the world? And there we have Taiwan with a free society, a functioning democracy, and I think, as you said, a fierce president.
Yes.
Sticks to her guns. That's thank you so much for some insight into what it is and why it matters. And thank you, Elisha. It's been a pleasure talking with you.
You as well, Claudia.
For more information, please look to the IWF.org site, and you'll find Elisha's article and more information there. Thank you, everybody.